Our parents and elders taught us to be cautious of strangers, to keep our distance. But what happens when the danger lurks within the very walls of our own home? How can we escape and protect ourselves when the threat comes from our own flesh and blood? This is a case of a father who impregnated his biological daughter with 7 children, while imprisoning her for more than 2 decades in a chamber of their own house. Josef Fritzl was born on April 9, 1935, in Amstetten, Lower Austria. His parents were Josef Fritzl Sr. and Maria Fritzl. Raised as an only child by his mother, Josef's father, who struggled with alcoholism, abandoned them when Josef was just 4 years old. They never re-established contact, and his father later served as a soldier during World War II. Tragically, in 1944, his father was killed in action, and his name is commemorated on a memoir plaque in Amstetten. In 1956, Josef married Rosemary and pursued his education at HTL Technical College, where he obtained a qualification in electrical engineering. From 1969 to 1971, he worked at a construction material firm in Amstetten. Later, he embarked on a career as a traveling technical equipment salesman, covering various regions of Austria. Upon turning 60 in 1995, Josef retired from his job and began renting multiple properties. In 1972, he made a significant purchase, acquiring a guest house and adjacent campsite at Lake Madsee. Alongside his wife, Rosemary, Josef managed the establishment until 1996. Fritzl and his wife had 3 sons and 4 daughters, including Elisabeth, who was born on April 6, 1966. It was stated that when Elisabeth was 11, she was sexually abused by her own father. At the age of 15, she completed her compulsory education and began a course to become a waitress. In January 1983, she decided to run away from home and sought refuge in Vienna. However, her escape was short-lived, as the police located her within 3 weeks and returned her to her parents in Amstetten. By mid-1984, Elisabeth had successfully completed her training as a waitress and received a job opportunity in Linz. When Elisabeth turned 18 on August 28, 1984, Josef Fritzl lured her into the basement of the family home and pretended to be carrying a door while, in fact, he was converting it into a makeshift prison cell. The door was the final component he needed to seal it. Josef inserted the door into the frame as Elisabeth held it in position. After doing so, he covered her face with a chemically soaked towel until she passed out and threw her into the chamber. Rosemary filed a missing persons report after Elisabeth disappeared. A month later, Josef Fritzl presented a letter to the police, the first of dozens that he had forced Elisabeth to write while she was held captive. It was reported that she was tired of living with her family and was staying with a friend. She warned her parents not to look for her or she would leave the country. Josef Fritzl told the police that she had most likely joined a cult. Over the next 24 years, Josef Fritzl visited the secret chamber almost every day, or at least 3 times a week, bringing food and other supplies, and raped repeatedly. During her captivity, Elisabeth gave birth to 7 children. One kid passed away soon after birth, while Lisa, Monica, and Alexander were removed from the chamber as infants, to live with Fritzl and his wife, who had been authorized by the local social service authorities as their foster parents. According to officials, Fritzl, very plausibly, detailed how 3 of his newborn grandchildren showed up at his door. Social workers visited the family on a regular basis, but they never observed or overheard anything to raise any red flags. Following the birth of Elisabeth's 4th child in 1994, Josef Fritzl allowed the enlargement of the prison. The captives had access to a television, a radio, and a videocassette player. They could store food in a refrigerator and cook or warm it, using hot plates. Elisabeth took on the responsibility of teaching the children how to read and write. At times, Josef Fritzl would impose punishments on the family, by cutting off their lights, or withholding food for days on end. Josef Fritzl issued a terrifying warning to Elisabeth and the remaining 3 children, Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, threatening them with gas poisoning if they attempted to escape. However, investigators determined that this was an empty threat designed to instill fear, as there was no gas supply in the basement. Additionally, Josef warned them of the risk of electrocution if they meddle with the cellar door. According to Josef Fritzl's sister-in-law, Christine, he would descend into the basement every morning at 9 o'clock, ostensibly to draw plans on machine that he sold to manufacturing firms. He frequently spent the night there and forbade his wife from bringing him coffee. A tenant who rented a room on the ground floor of the house for 12 years claimed to have heard noises emanating from the basement, which Fritzl explained away as being caused by faulty pipes or the gas heating system. On April 19, 2008, a critical incident occurred when Kirsten, Elisabeth's eldest daughter, lost consciousness, prompting Josef Fritzl to finally agree to seek medical assistance. Elisabeth assisted him in carrying Kirsten out of the hidden chamber, allowing her to glimpse the outside world for the first time in 24 years. However, Josef Fritzl cruelly forced Elisabeth to return to the chamber, where she remained for a final week. Kirsten was immediately transported by ambulance to a local hospital. Due to her severe condition, which included life-threatening kidney failure. Later, Josef Fritzl arrived at the hospital, claiming to have discovered a note written by Kirsten's mother. He engaged in discussions with Dr. Albert Reiter, who was involved in Kirsten's medical care, providing details about Kirsten's condition and presenting the alleged note. The medical staff at the hospital found certain aspects of Fritzl's story to be perplexing and raised concerns with the police on April 21. In response, the police issued a public appeal through the media, urging the missing mother to come forward and provide information regarding Kirsten's medical history. Simultaneously, the police reopened the investigation into Elisabeth's disappearance. Josef Fritzl reiterated his claim that Elisabeth had joined a cult, presenting what he claimed to be the most recent letter from her, supposedly dated January 2008 and sent from the town of Kamatin. Seeking expert input, the police consulted with Manfred Wohlfahrt, a church official and specialist in cults, who expressed skepticism regarding the existence of the group Fritzl described. Wohlfahrt also observed that Elisabeth's letters appeared to be dictated and written in an unusual manner. At Elisabeth's desperate plea, Josef Fritzl reluctantly agreed to take her, along with her sons Stefan and Felix, out of the cellar on April 26. They were brought upstairs, and Fritzl accompanied Elisabeth to the hospital where Kirsten was undergoing treatment. Acting on information provided by Dr. Reiter, who suspected something was amiss, the police detained Josef Fritzl and Elisabeth on the hospital premises, and transported them to a police station for further questioning. Initially, Elisabeth remained reluctant to disclose further details to the police. However, they assured her that she would never have to see her father again. Encouraged by this promise, Elisabeth gradually revealed the unimaginable horrors she had endured during her 24-year captivity. She described how Fritzl repeatedly raped her and forced her to watch pornographic videos, which he made her reenact with him in front of her own children, all part of his twisted efforts to humiliate her. Shortly after midnight, the police concluded their investigation, leading to the arrest of Josef Fritzl, who was 73 years old at the time, on April 26. He was taken into custody under suspicion of committing severe crimes against his own family members. During the night of April 27, Elisabeth, her children, and her mother Rosemary were placed under protective care. Remarkably, Josef Fritzl provided investigators with instructions on how to access the hidden basement chamber through a concealed small door, which could only be opened using a secret keyless entry code. Rosemary had been completely unaware of the horrific circumstances her daughter had been enduring. On April 29, it was officially announced that DNA evidence had confirmed Josef Fritzl as the biological father of his daughter's children, further corroborating the harrowing truth of the situation. During the daily press conference held by the Austrian police on May 1, it was revealed that Josef Fritzl had forced Elisabeth into writing a letter the previous year. This letter suggested that he may have been considering the possibility of releasing Elisabeth and her children. The letter indicated Elisabeth's desire to return home, but it's not possible yet. Investigators believed that Josef Fritzl had intended to stage a fake rescue, portraying himself as the savior who rescued his daughter from a fictitious cult. Franz Polzer, a police spokesman, announced that the police intended to interview at least 100 individuals who had resided as tenants in the Fritzl apartment building over the past 24 years. This extensive investigation aimed to gather more information and shed light on the circumstances surrounding Elisabeth's captivity. In 1967, Fritzl committed a break-in at the residence of a 24-year-old nurse in Linz. Her husband was not present at the time, and Fritzl proceeded to rape her while holding a knife to her throat, threatening her that he will kill her if she made any noise. According to the annual report and a press release from the same year, Fritzl was also implicated as a suspect in an attempted rape case involving a 21-year-old woman. Additionally, he had a reputation for engaging in indecent exposure. Following his arrest, Fritzl served 12 months of an 18-month prison sentence. Under Austrian law, his criminal record was expunged after 15 years. Consequently, when he later applied to adopt or foster Elisabeth's children over 25 years later, the local social service authorities failed to uncover his prior criminal history. Reflecting on his childhood, Fritzl initially described his mother as the best woman in the world, who enforced strictness when necessary. However, his perspective later shifted, and he described his mother in a negative light, claiming that she subjected him to severe beatings, hitting him until he was lying in a pool of blood on the floor that left him feeling humiliated and weak. In 1959, after Fritzl had gotten married and purchased his own house, his mother moved in with them. As time went on, their roles reversed, and Fritzl's mother began to fear him. Eventually, Fritzl admitted that he had imprisoned his mother in the attic, and bricked up her window after falsely informing neighbors of her death. He kept her locked up until she passed away in 1980. The report by forensic psychiatrist Adelheid Kastner described Fritzl's mother as unpredictable and abusive. Fritzl referred to himself as an alibi child, suggesting that his mother only had him to prove her fertility and ability to bear children. Fritzl claimed that his pathological behavior was inherent to his nature. While serving his prison sentence for the previous rape conviction, he confessed to planning his daughter's confinement as a means to control and express his evil side. He stated, "I was born to rape, and I restrained myself for a relatively long time. I could have behaved much worse than imprisoning my daughter." The forensic psychiatrist diagnosed Fritzl with a severe combination of personality disorders, including borderline, schizotypal, and schizoid types, as well as a sexual disorder. It was recommended that Fritzl receive lifelong psychiatric care. Subsequent reports have revealed that Fritzl's deliberate plan to imprison his daughter was not for disciplinary purposes, but rather for his own gratification. In accordance with the agreement that ensured she would never have to encounter her father again, Elisabeth Fritzl provided videotaped testimony to Austrian prosecutors and investigators on July 11, 2008. Subsequently, on November 13, 2008, Austrian authorities issued an indictment against Josef Fritzl. He faced trial for the murder of his infant son, Michael, who had passed away shortly after birth. Additionally, he was charged with rape, incest, kidnapping, false imprisonment, and slavery, which carry a maximum penalty of 20 years. The potential sentence for his crimes ranged from 10 years to life imprisonment. The trial of Josef Fritzl commenced on March 16, 2009, in the city of St. Pölten. Judge Andrea Humer presided over the proceedings. In addition to Elisabeth Fritzl's video testimony, her older brother Harold provided his own testimony, revealing that he had been subjected to physical abuse by Fritzl during their childhood. However, Fritzl's wife, Rosemary, and Elisabeth's children declined to testify. On March 18, 2009, Elisabeth Fritzl attended the second day of the criminal trial against her father, as part of her preparation for writing a book about her harrowing experience. During this time, she disguised herself while sitting in the visitors' gallery. Fritzl's defense attorney, Rudolf Mayer, confirmed that Josef Fritzl noticed Elisabeth's presence in the courtroom, causing him to become visibly pale and emotionally distraught. Mayer stated, "It was a meeting of eyes that changed his mind." The following day, Fritzl approached the judge and altered his pleas to guilty for all charges at the start of the proceedings. On March 19, 2009, Fritzl received a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for 15 years. He acknowledged his acceptance of the sentence and expressed his decision not to appeal. Currently, Fritzl is serving his sentence at Garsten Abbey, a former monastery in Upper Austria that has been converted into a prison. During the trial, Judge Humer stated that medical experts reported Elisabeth and her children were in relatively good health. After being taken into care, they were housed in a local clinic where they received medical and psychological treatment, shielded from the outside environment. The Fritzl family members were offered new identities, but it was emphasized that it was their choice to make. Berthold Keppelinger, the head of the clinic where Elisabeth and her children were being treated, mentioned that Elisabeth and the 3 children who were confined in the cellar required additional therapy to help them adjust to the light after years in semi-darkness. They also needed support to adapt to the newfound space they had to move around. Kirsten, who had been in an induced coma, was awakened on June 8, 2008, and doctors predicted a full recovery for her. It was later revealed that Elisabeth and her children had experienced more severe trauma than initially thought. During captivity, Kirsten had torn out her hair in clumps and shredded her dresses before stuffing them in the toilet. Stefan had difficulty walking due to his confinement and limited height. Normal occurrences such as lights dimming or doors closing caused anxiety and panic attacks for Kirsten and Stefan. The other 3 children who were raised by their father received treatment for anger and resentment stemming from the events. In late July 2008, it came to light that Elisabeth ordered her mother, Rosemary, to leave the villa they had been living in at a secret location arranged by a psychiatric clinic. Elisabeth was upset about her mother's passiveness during her upbringing. According to their lawyer, Christoph Herbst, Elisabeth and her family were doing well. They spent their time responding to numerous letters from around the world. Felix, Kirsten, and Stefan, who had been raised underground, learned to swim. All of Elisabeth's children attended a 4-day summer camp organized by firefighters, with 4,000 other young campers. In August 2008, care was taken to protect their privacy during day trips, including swimming outings, to keep them out of reach of paparazzi. After the trial, Elisabeth and her 6 children were relocated to an undisclosed village in northern Austria, residing in a fortress-like house. Ongoing therapy was provided for all the children, addressing various issues. Factors that traumatized the upstairs children include learning that Fritzl had lied to them about their mother abandoning them, the abuse they had received from him during their childhood, and finding out that their siblings had been imprisoned in the cellar. The downstairs children received therapy due to their deprivation from normal development, the lack of fresh air and sunshine while living confined in the basement, and the abuse that they and their mother had received from Fritzl when he came to the basement. Additionally, all of the children might have genetic problems common to children born of an incestuous relationship. Elisabeth was estranged from her mother, Rosemary, who had believed Fritzl's lies about Elisabeth joining a cult. However, Elisabeth allowed her 3 children who grew up in her parents' house to visit their grandmother regularly. According to an article that was released by The Independent in March 2010, Elisabeth and her children made remarkable recoveries given the immense difficulties they endured. According to Josef's sister-in-law, Christine, Elisabeth enjoyed activities such as shopping, taking showers, and driving. She obtained her driver's license without any problems. All of the children developed a normal sibling relationships with each other, and, although initially challenged, the upstairs children gradually recognized Elisabeth as their mother. They enjoyed outdoor activities, playing video games, and spending time with their mother and grandmother. Elisabeth and her mother, Rosemary, began visiting each other more frequently, and Elisabeth reportedly forgave her mother for believing Fritzl's story. In December 2016, the house where Elisabeth was held captive was sold for €160,000. The buyers expressed their intention to convert the building into apartments. In May 2017, Josef Fritzl changed his name to Josef Mayrhoff, possibly due to a prison altercation where other inmates created a fake dating profile using his name and picture, leading to a fight that resulted in the loss of several teeth. Mark Perry, a British journalist who interviewed Fritzl in his cell, reported that Fritzl showed no remorse for his crimes. He repeatedly mentioned that people should investigate other people's basements, suggesting the possibility of finding more families and victims there. In April 2019, it was revealed that Fritzl's health was deteriorating, and he expressed a desire not to live anymore. In September 2021, a decision was made to transfer Fritzl from a psychiatric detention facility to a regular prison to continue serving his life sentence. The decision was based on a psychiatric report indicating that he no longer posed a danger. The ruling was appealed, and in late April 2022, a panel of 3 judges granted the transfer based on a supplementary psychiatric report submitted in March. However, a court ruled that he would remain in the psychiatric facility until his appeal to the higher regional court in Vienna was heard. There have been reports indicating that he is suffering from dementia. The move to a regular prison implies that Fritzl, who received a life sentence, would be eligible for parole in 2023 after serving the initial 15 years of his sentence. Do not get easily persuaded by someone no matter how much you know them, even if it's your own flesh and blood. Always remain vigilant at all times and always remember, there are 3 sides to every story: the victim's side, the perpetrator's side, and the truth. Remember, the power to create change lies within each of us.